Hi guys, thank you, and girls, thank you for joining my session today. I think the rest of the audience is still stuck in the bathroom or something. Perhaps they ate something bad at lunch, I don't know, but you made the right decision coming to this talk. This is the most interesting talk of the entire conference, so thank you very much. I'm Eddie, Eddie for plugin, as I'm called, Eddie for Verbruggen, what I'm really called. This is my home, this is where I live, really. But I shouldn't. I live here way too much. If you look at my GitHub chart, it's stupid. So the top bar there in all these tiles and the bottom bar, those are weekend days. Those should be blank. Don't do this. Don't try this at home. It will drive you nuts. Way too many contributions, repositories to maintain. Caution. Don't do that. Okay. So that was my disclaimer. Oh, by the way, if you want to hear me rant about doing open source a bit more, you can come to my talk tomorrow at 12, and I'll tell you everything about things about open source as a maintainer and as a user, what to do, what not to do. So I really enjoy being in Bulgaria. I love you Bulgarian guys and girls, and but still not everything about Bulgaria is awesome, as I noticed when I was driving to work in the Netherlands. And there was this Bulgarian truck driver who pulled up next to me at the traffic light. And he wanted to go left, I wanted to go straight ahead. And then he decided when the lights went green to also go right ahead. So he bumped into me. So that's my car, a lot of damage. And I still don't have my money, by the way. And it was 5 months ago. So I tend to look him up in Bulgaria, now I'm here. So if you've seen that guy with a smiley face, let me know. So enough about my car and me. Let's talk about NativeScript plugins. Well, I ripped this slide from someone. I can't remember who it was. It isn't that complicated, so I don't feel that guilty, but I ripped it off someone else's presentation. So the architecture of NativeScript and their plugins is a bit like this. Your application code at the top. You tap into NativeScript modules, which taps into the NativeScript runtime, which talks to Android and iOS. And you can also, as you can see in the big fat arrow on the right, tap directly into the native features. And well, plugins are positioned over there. They can be called by your application code. Of course, we try to make simple APIs you can use, and then the plugin does the hard stuff for you. And it's positioned a bit above those NativeScript modules because, of course, in your plugins you can also use the NativeScript modules themselves, stuff like HTTP, application, whatnot. Very convenient to be able to use that as a plugin author as well. And yeah, where do you find those plugins? You may have seen this site, the NativeScript marketplace at market.nativescript.org, which was released about 2 months ago. There are a lot of sites, by the way, showing NativeScript plugins. Yeah, they all have their merits, so you can use whichever site really you want, but I personally use this one. It also shows you which plugins have been verified by the NativeScript plugins team. They review your plugins, they make sure the webpacking is possible because they add traffic scripts, the documentation is right, and it really actually works on iOS and Android, if that's appropriate for that plugin. So let's look at one. Here's local notifications, for instance. This is the documentation that's actually being just ripped off of GitHub. And yeah, you can see code snippets, how you would install it, how you can use it. Perhaps if there's quirks, you'll be able to learn it from that website. But instead of just talking about plugins, I was thinking, why not show you a few. So I did a talk in Boston 2.5 years ago about Cordova plugins, actually, and I wanted to show a bunch of plugins, and I had one demo app per plugin, and it was a bit cumbersome to switch between all those apps. So I thought, yeah, why not just make one app with all those plugins and release to the App Store as well, so I can easily play with it and show you a few today. So let's try and switch to my simulator there. Oh, it's not a simulator, sorry. It's actually QuickTime streaming from my phone here. Yeah, here it is. So I bought this 2-meter cable. It's the longest cable you can get if you want an officially certified cable, and you want it probably because otherwise your QuickTime stream will break. But yeah, I was anticipating some 15-inch plasma screen or something so I could point out stuff, but it's a bit bigger than that. But I really like it, so I think I'm just gonna have to ignore you a bit and play with my app for a while. So do something for yourself. I'm going to enjoy my plugins. This app currently shows you 30 plugins, and there's already something going on here on the first page. There's the gradient plugin, which I really like. It beefs up your app UI a bit. Because at the very top, if you look at the green pixels over there, and at the very bottom, they are a different shade. So there's this two-bottom transition of 2 shades of green going on here. And this is the home page, and on every page of the app, you'll see this information icon where you can see which plugins are being used on which page. In this case, so there's gradient. You can you see a short description about the plugin. You can link to it on GitHub, and well, there's a few others here as well. For instance, there's the font icon plugin, which is really lovely. You can use font icons in your app without a plugin, but you need to remember the Unicode characters, etc. And if you read it back, you don't really know what it was. And with this plugin, you can just say, okay, give me a hamburger menu. And then if you look very closely, I'm not sure I can actually zoom in on that one. Oh, that's the wrong screen. Eddie, what have you done? You killed it. Yeah, I know, because my cursor is over there. Yeah, you see the little bit of cheese in the hamburger? It's a lovely thing. So it's the actual hamburger menu of the Material Design Icons library. I would really recommend you to use it because there's a lot of icons in there. And there's this hand at the top, but that's just a regular emoji. You can just copy paste from anywhere and just throw it in. It's not even an icon. That just works on iOS and Android, which is pretty cool. And also on this page, there's the NativeScript UI plugin, which has been made free recently. But you always had a free drawer plugin, which is this one, with a few nice effects, with a shadow going on here. You can see it at the bottom pretty clearly. That the menu is a bit lower position than the page itself, so it's a really lovely thing. And also at the bottom, there's a plugin going on. It's a link to my Twitter, and yeah, if you have the Twitter app installed in your phone, you'll probably want to link into the native app instead of the web page. But if you don't have it installed, you want to go to the web page, so it still works. So with the app availability plugin, you can query for custom URL schemes in your app. You can see if it's available, and let's click it. So here this pop-up says, yeah, you have it available. I checked that, and well, you can now choose to go to the Twitter account. And actually, there's no cancel button here, so you have to go to my Twitter handle. Yay! So there you go. And then this is just something that's already available in Tina's core modules. You can open any URL from your app, so you don't really need a plugin for that. But just to query if it's installed, you need it. So here's a few themes going on. There's a feedback theme, mapping speech, input, app icons, and augmented reality. I wanted to show you a few of these. So if you want to show feedback in your app, well, there's a lot of options. This one is pretty ugly because it's green on green. It's not the best decision I made, I guess. But there's also other colors because this one is totally tweakable to your liking. You can have different icons. You can have a title and a text. You can tweak the time that you show it. You can tap it to dismiss it. You can programmatically dismiss it, etc. And it's not blocking. You can still use the app while it's showing, and on iOS you can also show them from the button, which is also pretty nice. Fortunately, that's not possible on Android, but the rest of the features are. And this is a bit less intrusive. It's Toast, which I actually use all the time in all my apps because I like it. It looks just the same on iOS and Android. Pretty simple thing. And then there's Fancy Alert, which is totally blocking. I can't use the app anymore. You have to press a button. You have to put in some feedback. You can show all kinds of native things in here. You can even have a switch and whatnot. Here it actually works as well. So that's also a way to show feedback. But yeah, it's a bit more intrusive, right? And then there's snack bar, which is this little thingy from the bottom. It's also pretty nice. And until recently on iOS, it wasn't possible to hide that OK button. But I sent a pull request to, I think, Brett Martin's repository to be able to not have that. And now you can have simple text. So these are pretty nice as well. And then there's local notification. So I'm pressing the button at the left there. And now you'll, in 5 seconds, there's a scheduled local notification coming in. And if you press that, you'll be taken back. Oh, I have to press it actually. You'll be taken back into your app and you'll get the payload of the notification you pressed, because you could have multiple. And now you can do something with that information in your app, for instance, route to a different page or something. And well, if you would schedule a notification and you would not press it, so here's another notification, throw it away and just launch it by the app icon, you won't get that feedback in your app. So you actually know if the app was launched by a notification. And obviously you don't need a push server with this, because you can also schedule that locally with one simple API call. This is MapBox. It's a really performant mapping tool, really. It's OpenGL powered. And well, the blue dot is us, if that's right. And I was thinking that the venue would be at that marker I dropped there, but I don't think I was very accurate with that. That's probably the hotel or something, the Holiday Inn. But sorry, it's empty. There's nothing there. Okay, no, there's some triangle building. I don't know. You may know it, but this is here-ish, right? And well, there's all kinds of gestures you can do with MapBox, like you're really used to with Google Maps, really. And also on the top, at the bottom right here, there's the floating action button, which is a pretty nice plugin, which overlays on anything. You can actually overlay any kind of UI you like over this map, but this is a nice, consistent plugin, also by Brett Martin, I think. And you can have markers, and you can have callouts, whatever you like, and you can press those callouts and you get an event back in your app, and it will remove, in this case, this marker. So let's see what else is there. You can zoom out a bit, and oh, what's all these truck drivers doing here? Okay, so perhaps I found my truck driver, and I think this one resembles the truck the most that hit me. Where is he? Actually, he is in Lazarovo. So, but I like I said, I still don't have my money, so I'm planning to go to this guy. So I also added a marker here, and I can tap to show directions, and that will tap into NativeScript Directions plugin. And NativeScript Directions plugin uses either your current location or some fixed location and the location you want to go to, and it will open up your native Maps app. In this case, it's Apple Maps. On Android, it will be Google Maps. And it will tell you where to go. Okay, that's very nice, but I think I'll do that on my way home. I give him a few days to still pay me. So there's also one exception to that usage of the native Maps app, because if you have one waypoint or one place to go, then it's fine. But if you have multiple waypoints in between, that's not supported by Apple Maps. So then the plugin will fall back to Google Maps on iOS as well, if you have that installed. And you get to choose if you want to go to the website of Google Maps if you don't have it installed. So it's pretty flexible in that regard. And also pretty nice about MapBox. This is where I live, by the way. This is the center of the city. There's a new map type they recently released with traffic density. So it's okay at this time of day. So that's where I live-ish. Not exactly the address. I don't want you to stalk me or anything. So that's my home. It's only 100 meters from my house, by the way, so it's okay. So if you click that, it will go to Google Maps, and it will give you a waypoint to the truck driver. If that's okay, it's still loading. Yeah, there we are. Oh dear. And then afterwards, it will go to my house. So here's where's Lazarovo now? I don't know. My Bulgarian geography is, I don't know. Oh, here, something. It's probably somewhere along the lines. I don't know. Somewhere over there. But that's NativeScript Directions. It's pretty nice if you have some contact page in your app or something. You can have people go there. And speech, this is pretty nice. I must say the speech engines on mobile are pretty good these days. So you can do speech recognition, and you can do speech or text to speech, and you can actually build pretty nice things with it. So let me try. Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous. Okay, I take it. It's not exactly what I said. Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so can we have audio, or is it on? I don't think it's really. Should I plug it in back in or?
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
Awesome. So that's text to speech, and there's a few things you can tweak with it, which is pretty nice. You get to tweak the pitch.
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
And you can tweak the rate.
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
So that's a bit too fast, right?
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
Yeah, that's okay. So and it's also pretty nice with these sliders. You can see that NativeScript is really a multi-touch thing. So this is pretty nice. So if you would do it like this and like this. So this is a bit weird, right? So
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
So yeah, if you take in some helium and then try to say that, then that's the effect you get. And oh, by the way, I saw a lot of guys smoking outside. Be careful because you can end up sounding like this.
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
Yeah, lay off the smoking, guys. Come on. So let's put it in the middle again.
Bulgarian truck drivers are dangerous.
So I tried to make a little Siri-like feature with this with text-to-speech because yeah, you can record your speech and then you can parse the text, right? So I tried to do a few fun things. What's my schedule today?
What's my schedule today? Find a bottle of rakia and get drunk in 4 hours and 52 minutes.
I'd love to. Yeah, so that's actually NativeScript calendar, which finds the events in your calendar. There's one at 7 o'clock. I totally intend to do that. I had a taster yesterday. It was pretty nice. So there's a few others, like compose an email with subject hi and message bye. I'm so creative.
Compose an email with subject hi and message bye.
So now it will launch NativeScript email with those fields pre-filled. And you can also pre-fill the to, the CC, the BCC, and also add attachments, but that's a bit hard to do with speech, I guess, so I didn't do that. And let me think. Oh yeah, this one is really challenging, so bear with me. It rises like Olympus above the Serengeti.
Rises like Olympus above the Serengeti.
It's almost good, I
That
guess.
sounds like Toto with Africa,
Oh, I
right?
recognized it. Yeah. Here we go. Kilimanjaro rises like Olympus above the Serengeti. Love that song. Did I have any more here? I can just cheat. I can press the tips button. Oh yeah, share a selfie, of course. Yeah. So I always have to take a selfie with the audience if I do a presentation. So you get to. That is the NativeScript image picker. That's the one at the bottom. And one at the top is NativeScript camera. And recently I did a PR to NativeScript camera to start your camera with the front camera. If you want to do a selfie, that makes sense, right? So that was merged, so I was able to update it. And the last time I did it, my app crashed because I rotated to landscape. Well, not really app crashed. The QuickTime streaming crashed. So I'm not going to rotate my thing. So I'm going to try to just... Yay. Oh, with the front flash, that will work, right? So light on my head is pretty good, but the rest... Okay, so you can use this photo and then tweet it out. So this is NativeScript social share by TJ Van Tol. Shall I do an ad here? That's nicer, right? I always have to use emoji. That's okay. So now I tweeted out a tweet about DevReach with all you in it, except for you, Rob. Sorry, you were a bit too much over there. Sorry. Perhaps with landscape it would have worked, but everything would have crashed. So that's speech recognition. I really love that. Also, a pretty nice theme is input. If you want to capture a signature, for instance, you can use the drawing pad. You can draw a bit, and then you can clear it because that looked like rubbish. So these are my initials. You can grab it, and then you'll get an image source back, which you can send it to your server or whatever you like, and you can have multiple. So that works pretty good. And there's checkbox, and well, which ones do you like? This is a checkbox, so you can like multiple. I'm not totally honest about liking that one because I don't have much experience with it, so it's hard to say if I really like it. I heard good things, but I heard a lot more good things about the other one. So let's leave them both checked. And recently, it was made possible by someone to add to use it as radio buttons. So you can also use that in your app. It's not something you normally get in a native app, right? Checkboxes and radio buttons, but with the NativeScript checkbox plugin, you can. And then there's something I needed for an app. I needed to be able to enter numeric stuff with a numeric keyboard for a PIN code, for instance, or a currency, an amount of money. And by default, you can get input type is number. You'll get this. And for a PIN code, that's not very convenient. And the other one it's a bit better. This input type is phone. But these are the things you can already have without using any plugin. With the numeric keyboard plugin, you can have stuff like this with very big numbers. And there's also an iPad version which looks a bit different, but it's the same idea. And also, which is pretty nice at the bottom left, is something you can't do with iOS or on iPhone at least. You can hide the keyboard again with the button, which is pretty cool. And you can tweak all these things a bit. For instance, if you don't want decimals, well, the decimal button is gone. And there's even more gone now. Oh, because my Mac fell asleep. So I have a plugin for that. It's called Insomnia, but it doesn't work on macOS. So unfortunately, you can change the return key title, and you can also even totally ignore it. So this would work even better for a PIN code. And then there's IQ Keyboard, which TJ Van Tol created, but it was really the simplest plugin ever because he only had to integrate a CocoaPod. And that's it. That will be installed in your app. And anytime you have an input field, the view will scroll up with your keyboard, which is very convenient. But that was it. And later I figured that there was more to it. You can tweak the hell out of it, really. So if you want that, if you want to, for instance, be able to tap outside the keyboard to dismiss it, which is also not possible on iOS by default, then you do that with IQ Keyboard. If you want to show a hint in the toolbar, for instance, this text field at the top says email, you can now see, well, it's very light over there, but there's email in the toolbar. If you don't want to have the toolbar at all, you can remove it and change done and not interested, and also show it as a dark keyboard, which is pretty cool. By the way, this key thing widget, that's something iOS added. I think it thinks it's a login field or something, then you get an icon like that. So let me disable these again and go to app icon. Yeah, I don't think these are used very much. App shortcuts, because it's this, right? If you force press 3D touch the icon, you can have this pop out icon menu. And I must say that Android did a pretty good job with this because in Android 7.1 they added a similar feature. You can have this feature as well, but they went one step further. You can drag out one of these options and put it on your home screen. So then you have like a really useful deep link. Because now, if I want to go to mapping, I have to force press this. First I have to remember that there's a deep link in there anyway, then force press it. Then, well, in this case I don't even find a deep link to mapping. But I can now deep link to feedback, and there you go. But yeah, on Android you can just have a feedback icon on your home screen and be there immediately, so that's a bit better. But yeah, unfortunately that's Android 7.1, and who in the audience here has Android 7.1 anyway? So if you have a shiny Samsung S8, you don't have it because you have 7.0, which is a pity. So I really, Samsung, get your shit together and release Android versions more often. Just drop Bixby and all the other stuff. Thank you very much. So but you can add programmatically these deep links, and you can also do it statically if you ship it with your app. So now I have a mapping deep link. But let's get back to app icon because that's where I left off. And you can remove it again, but I'm sure you believe me, it's now gone. And in iOS 10.3, there's also a very interesting feature if you think about it, but once you really try to think about the use case to use for an app icon changer, it becomes pretty rather limited because of how they implemented it. Because, okay, now I have this nice green icon, but say I want the red icon. So if I press it, you'll get this pop-up. And this is a pop-up by the OS. It's not something that my app or the plugin does. It's just iOS who notifies you that the icon has changed. And what's even worse, your app needs to be in the foreground to be able to do that. So now it's red, yay. But yeah, I thought, yeah, let's make a weather app that will be cool with an ever-changing icon. But yeah, forget about it. It needs to be in the foreground. You get this pop-up. By the way, the plugin offers a way to hijack that pop-up to hide it, but it's not. Yeah, it's a bit frowned upon by Apple, so you better not use it. And then there's augmented reality. Currently I'm working on that as much as I can. Also, there's a preliminary release for Android, but yeah, this is a bit more advanced. And the last time I did it, I had a hard time detecting a plane because you don't have to drop stuff on a surface with AR, but it's a nice use case. So you first want to detect a plane and then drop stuff on it. But because it's so dark, like you see here, last time Sebastian helped me. He pulled out his phone and opened the flashlight, and then I was able to detect phones. But yeah, then I thought, why not just integrate a NativeScript flashlight plugin, right? So now I can do it myself, and you can see it immediately detects planes. So you can have, by the way, any texture you like. I just did a bit of a transparent white texture for the plane. I can also film you, and you see those yellow dots. It tries to detect planes on you, but you're not flat enough, or dear photographer. So here's a nice plane, and you don't need to keep on detecting planes because once you have it, it's okay. You can walk around it, but I'll still show the plane because otherwise it's a bit hard to see where stuff is. And I can also remove my flashlight actually. So what you can do now is, well, I've selected this, by the way, NativeScript dropdown. So just another plugin in there. And you can drop boxes on it. So, and these boxes, let's see how far I can go. Can I unplug the audio by the way? Awesome, thanks. I don't want to blow up his app, his stuff, of course. So, yeah, here you go. You can stack them on top of each other, or at least you can try. And then, if you long press one of these boxes, they will be removed. So there's ways to interact with the models you add to your scene, and of course there will be more gestures. There's already a few, and well, you may wonder, at the bottom right, you can see a counter over there. That's 21, 23, 22. That's the number of objects I've added to the scene, and you can imagine if you throw in 1,000 of those boxes that perhaps your app will crash. So there's a trick to that. If I add a lot over here, they will fall off this plane. They will tumble down. And at a certain point in time, they just burst like soap bubbles, and they're really gone from the scene. And you see that counter going down again. So about 30 meters below here, there's this huge ass plane that has hit detection and then removes the models from the scene. So, but that's built into the plugin for you. You don't have to worry about it. And of course, you can have other things than boxes, but in this case, yeah, oh, it's like a semi-transparent sphere, which is red. Okay, bye-bye. So it's very hard to stack a sphere on a cube. So, sorry? Oh no! What happened? It's probably a QuickTime thing. Okay, it's not really a problem because what I wanted to show you was what I wanted to say is that, like I said before, Insomnia is not there for macOS, but I added it here because you may just want to wander around. So Insomnia will keep your screen awake. And the other thing, I had this very nice model of a car I wanted to drop on here, and that's why I wanted a big plane. But yeah, you can later on you can play it with it yourself because I'll share the link to the app stores of this app. So I'm good. Let's see. I hope I can switch back to my presentation. Come on. Ah, there you go. That's where we left off. So that was 30 plugins. I probably skipped one or two. But yeah, how do you make these babies? Yeah, and it's not. I don't only want to show it for you to learn how to create them, but also to understand a bit how they work, and then maybe if you find an issue, you'll be able to perhaps figure out a bit what's going on and help me fixing the things. So how I create the plugins is, and I also would recommend it to you, is by using a seed. And a seed, yeah, it's like a starter template, but yeah, you have to look for a really good seed, a strong seed, so to say, a good one, because yeah, you want something that's been battle tested. I'm using the NativeScript plugin seed, which is the official seed now for plugins, adopted by the NativeScript team. It was originally started by Nathan Walker. I really liked it. I added a few things to it, and now it's maintained by NativeScript themselves. So I'd really recommend you to use this one. And you may be put off by all the stuff that's in here, because really, if you want to push something to npm, because that's where you install the plugins from, you only really need a package JSON, right? But that's just only metadata. You also need one JavaScript file typically, or in TJ's case with IQ Keyboard Manager, a CocoaPod file. But there's a lot more going on over here, but it really is useful stuff. So I wanted to walk you through it a little. So let's see what's in here. At the top there's this GitHub folder, and that has an issue template, which is pretty convenient because yeah, it like dictates what you want users to use when they file an issue, right? So if you have some script kiddie dropping in and he sees that template, he thinks, okay, let's get the hell out of here. It's too much work for me. So that's one bug less in your repository. So that's really good. You need to have that. And oh, by the way, all the advice I give, probably I don't follow up myself. So, but there's only 2 repositories I have with the issue template. So really stupid, but. And then I complain about people not reporting issues properly. So don't take all of my advice too hard. So also there's a demo folder. That's what I really always use. And there's also tests in it. And those tests are really meant to test your API service. You want to have a consistent API over the various platforms, of course. So that's what you can check here. And in this case, is the Jasmine script that just checks for functions to be available and what kind of types they return. So, but you can go all out if you like, of course. And then there's this publish folder if you're confused about how to publish anything to npm or what you need to publish anyway. This script will take care of it for you. So that's also pretty convenient. And there's a git ignore file. I didn't have that a few years ago, and then you put up all kinds of awkward local folders on your GitHub. You don't really want that. So yeah, it helps to make things tidy and pay attention, because it's the best animation I have today. Make your pretty repository even prettier. Nice. So that's git ignore, pretty important. tslint, yeah, it runs during builds. It's also leveraged by your continuous integration environment to check if there's any code quality problem. And it's defined in a certain way, spaces, quotes, etc. But of course, you just tweak this to your liking because it's your plugin. And then there's the most important folder. That's the source folder. The source folder has native folders, the platform folders, Android and iOS. If your app is doing anything interesting with which need permissions, for instance, the camera or push notifications, then you need to define those in your Android manifest. And if you have a library, an external library from Android Arsenal, some kind of jar or anything, you can add it to the Gradle file. And if you have something similar for iOS, then you can add it here. And also permissions in your plist, etc. But if you don't need all these platform-specific things, you can just blow away the platform folder. And then there's npm ignore, which is, well, the same thing like git ignore is for Git. This is for npm. Like 2 years ago or something, I didn't use this. And so what it will do, it will just copy everything you have in your repository to npm as well. So also your demo folder, your screenshots. I even had some 20 megabyte video in one of my repositories. And what will happen if someone installs your package, it will also add that video to their app. So, and then they complain about, well, my app is 60 megabyte, NativeScript sucks. So, but that's actually then my fault. So npm ignore, but you don't need to worry about it. Like I said, it's just all set up correctly for this seed if you use it. And also Travis, which is pretty complicated at first. Way to define tests, what kind of continuous integration runs are needed for your plugin. It's all being set up for you already, so it will test it, and it will also test it for a context, a Webpack context. So if your plugin is used in an app that is Webpacked, well, if the Travis build passes, you can rest assured that your plugin will be useful as well with Webpack. So just leave it there, don't blow it away. The only things you need to do is go to travisci.org, log in with your GitHub account, and flip a switch to build that repository, and that's it. And then probably your build will break, and then you don't know what to do, because that happens every time. But the commercial speech is that it will just work, no worries. And then your package.json, that's the only mandatory file really in your plugin, where you can tweak the name and description and keywords, etc. So let me check the time. It's okay, I have 15-ish minutes. So I'd like to dive a bit deeper in what I do, and I wanted to create a little plugin today. It's a really simple one, so I hope I'll be able to pull it off. So what I wanted to do is, someone on the forum asked, okay, how can I detect 24-hour format in NativeScript? So I created a gist, and it's actually, well, not that hard. It's a few lines of code. So for iOS, it is actually pretty hard. It's stupid. So what happens here? There's a date formatter and a format template options locale and a J and a magic 0, and then okay, use your current locale. I get that's relevant, but then use the date format and just see if there's no A in it. Okay, it's very weird, but that's the way you can do it, and I found that on Stack Overflow, and it got a lot of thumbs up, so it's probably okay. But on Android, look at it. It's Android text format, date format is 24-hour format, and pass it the context. So wow, thank you, Android. That looks like how you need to do it, right? So let's get to work. There's a few steps involved. I'm not going to do all of them. You need to clone the seed, configure the seed. I'll just do this in a minute. Open the template in your favorite IDE, and unlike Berg, I'm not going to use VS Code. Add your plugin code to it, update the demo app, run the demo app, probably also update and run the tests, document the API. It's a lot of work. It can be done in 10 minutes, I hope, and push it to GitHub and release to npm and make world peace. Not sure we'll get to 11. We'll see. So what I need to do here is mirror my display. Yay! And then also. Okay, oh dear. I don't. It's a bit it's a lot of pixels. I didn't anticipate this much pixels, so but I'll just cope with it. Okay, where's my browser? So yep, that's okay. This is the plugin seed repository, and here are the instructions you really need to do. The too long don't read section is actually more enough for you. So here's my command prompt, and because of Wi-Fi, I actually disabled Wi-Fi. I already cloned the seed locally, and I'm just gonna clone that local folder to another folder. So there you go. Who said npm is slow? So the second step here is go into that source folder. So that's what we're going to do, and then you need to run npm run post clone. And that will take a second because in the seed there's this npm script called post clone, and it will do a couple of things. First is ask who you are, because it can use this information to already fill in a few bits, so you don't need to. And then also rename a few files based on what you input here. So I say I want to call it dateutils, and I also want to start a Git repository, and now it has to download a lot of packages, but it's all cached, so that should be okay. And once that's done, you can step 4 run it. Let's see what we have now. I promise you it won't be much, but you can already run it on Android. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to use my favorite IDE, which is IntelliJ, which is the big brother of WebStorm, but it's not free, to open the project. I use this because I'm a Java guy originally, and I use it in a corporate environment for 10 years or something. So all these shortcuts are, yeah, I know all of these. And in VS Code, there's actually a way to also use the IntelliJ shortcut schemes. I recently found that, and it really helped me to also use that in a productive manner. But these builds for iOS and Android, they take a while, but it will get there. But in the meanwhile, let's see what's in here. It's a bit small, right? So these are the bits I didn't talk about yet. So this is the source folder again with the platforms folder we don't need. So I can immediately remove that. And this is the index.dts is the file that's referenced for my package.json. It's the typings file. So if you would install this plugin, you would get code completion based on whatever is in this file. So what I typically do, and this is, I've seen all kinds of ways to do this, and also all kinds of ways to implement plugins, because I like to use a class, but others just want to expose some static function. It's all okay. It's just your personal preference. But what I usually do is not repeat myself and export anything I create in my common file and expose that to your app. So the default behavior of the seed is alert something. Make it a bit bigger. If Android will work with me on this one. So the only drawback I ever find of IntelliJ IDEA is that it needs to index your files. And I've just installed a lot of node modules in my project, and it needs to parse them to be able to provide code completion and refactoring options. So that's really the only drawback. That's the progress bar over there. But once that's done, you're golden. So let's wait for that for a second. You can also see that here's a license file. You get to choose a license if you do open source. I have a quiz question tomorrow about licenses, and you can win a T-shirt. So if you want a nice Git T-shirt, come to that talk. So I'm not gonna spoil anything. I wanted to say something about the license, but I'm not gonna do that. So just please come tomorrow. It's a nice T-shirt. It's a new one. I haven't worn it yet. And here's the README. Yeah, just follow this template, and you'll be fine. It's nothing really special. You can do this in 2 minutes if you only expose one method like I will be doing. So let's see. The indexer is ready, so we don't need this anymore except for this one, step 5. So this seed uses TypeScript. and it's really convenient, but yeah, it needs to be compiled before it can really run on NativeScript, right? Because that's a JavaScript runtime. So what you can do here is watch any changes to your TypeScript files, and it will automatically transpile it to JavaScript and expose it to your demo app, which is running in the browser or in the emulator here. So let's continue with the implementation. So I want to expose everything from this file. This is my command file, and this is also where this alert was triggered. But I'm going to blow this away, and like I said, you can do this in many ways. But I like to usually create an interface, because this is what I want to implement in my both platform-specific files. So that's what I'm doing here. Export interface, date utils, and there will be a is24hour format function in there, which returns a promise. By the way, of course, you don't need to return a promise. You can also just return the Boolean directly. In this case, probably that makes more sense because it's not that costly to determine this, but it's pretty good common sense to use promises so you don't block your user's applications. So that's why I'm doing a promise here as well. And then on Android, I want to implement a class. In this case, dateUtils implements, and now I'm in a bit of a pickle because they have the same name. So I want to import that. And what you can do here, if you want to use the same name, you can say, okay, import it as S, something with a different name. So now we implement that API, but we don't. So my IDE already says, okay, you need to implement something. So now we have the is24hour method implemented in Android almost, because we don't want to use undefined as return value, but we want to return a promise, right, with a resolve and a reject. And you typically use reject if some unexpected error pops up, of course. But in this case, I don't really need it, so I might as well just remove this one, but it doesn't really matter. But let's get back to that gist, because that's where the actual implementation is, right? So we need this line of code. So convenient on Android. And then just resolve that. There's only one thing here. You need to import this AD module, which is from the core modules. So thanks for that. That's easy. Otherwise, I had to figure out myself how to get the application context. So that's really the implementation you need on Android. But I'm also going to do iOS right away. It's just a copy-paste of Android with a little different implementation, right? So there was this awkward thing. I can just drop it in here. And here it's determined, so I can now resolve this, and that should be okay. And the reason you needed to wait a bit for the indexer to complete is that you get nice features like this. This is the native iOS date formatter, and NativeScript ships with the definitions for those for your entire platform actually, and that's also available for Android. So you don't need to make typos here, because you will. And in the past, I didn't create TypeScript plugins, and I had typos. So yeah, it's very hard to find a bug like this. So now you can use it, and you also get hints for what kind of types are expected. But still, it would have been very hard to figure out what I had to enter here without Stack Overflow, right? So, well, this should be really it. So let's look at. Here, cannot find. Okay, so what we need to do next is go to our demo app, because that's for certain it's broken, because the demo doesn't expect you to use this dateUtils plugin yet, because it's still, well, there's a message and there's an alert and that's it. So let's change the UI a bit. Hang on. And then change the model as well. So dateUtils is already imported here. Yep, that looks good. And now we have to instantiate a class. Again, it's a bit overkill in this case, but you have this is 24-hour format. Sorry, method in your demo app now, and it's a promise, right? And it will return a boolean, and that boolean can be used to set some property in your view, and that should be this one. And if we now run it for iOS as well, why not? TNS, sorry, it's npm run iOS probably. Oh no, it's not. Okay, so Android's already done, that's okay. Oh yeah, sorry, it's demo iOS. Like I said, I use this sheet all the time. So, but while that's building for iOS, you can see that on Android it returns false. Okay, iOS is not playing nice with me. I don't really care. We already have Android here. So if you hang on, I don't want this magnifying glass. Go away. So okay, if you would look at the date and time here, you can see that Android is set to use 24-hour format false, and you can flip that to true. And then you can go back to your app, and now it will report true. So that's proof that the plugin is working. So I want to make sure I don't have to get to 11, because I don't know what to do with that. So I think I'll skip the rest, because it's just documentation and also implement the tests. So I'll leave that for another day, because I'm going to release this plugin sometime this week. I don't think it's too useful, but still, now I've created it, I will release it. So let's get back to where we were. And sorry, let's skip this. I didn't want to let you go before I told you 3 more things, and that's you guys, by the way. You look really good. So hop on over to market.nativescript.org. The dateutils plugin will be up there. You all need it. It's an awesome plugin. Beware of Bulgarian truck drivers, please. They're dangerous. And if you like the demo app, you can download it from the app stores. The left one is for iOS, the right one is for Android. I plan to expand it. It's 30 plugins now, but you get to show off NativeScript to your friends at a bar, at a party, whatever you like. So please, yeah, download it. And if you want to look at the source, because there are a few tricks in there that's not really standard NativeScript, like those models on iOS, that's pretty hard to pull off. At the bottom there's a link to, well, my GitHub, where the plugin is open, the app is open source. So yeah, have fun with NativeScript, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. Sorry, can I? Yeah, okay. By the way, iOS 11 has a party trick these days. If you open the camera app, you can just scan a QR code, which is pretty cool.